Trump's two genders executive order is so messy, both in its contents and in the fallout, the chaos it has caused, as government agencies and federally funded institutions are already scrambling to implement these policies without even having a directive on how to implement them. So right now it's just up to everyone's interpretation, and they're going for it. It is sloppy. Honestly, it feels like they're just rushing to do this to maybe beat the injunctions, because there will definitely be a lot of legal pushback, as Trump absolutely does not have the power to change all of these things with an executive order. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about the executive order. We're going to talk about the many problems it has already caused. But there is a bigger problem brewing from all of this that people either don't see or just don't want to admit. So we're also going to talk about the leopards in the room, because they're here and they're hungry and they don't care if your face is trans. These attacks on trans rights are part of Trump's bigger flood the zone strategy, a tactic that is designed to keep us all overwhelmed so that we don't fight back. If you saw my last video talking about how exhausted I am that every part of my life is already being affected by what Trump is doing, and the thousands of comments from trans people feeling the same, you know that we are overwhelmed. But giving way to our feelings of helplessness and allowing ourselves to become numb to what he's doing is exactly what he wants. And he's already had everything handed to him in life, so let's not give him this. Let's protect our peace and keep the mental clarity that he is trying to take from us so that we can fight back. And part of that comes from how we allow ourselves to consume this information. Staying informed is a necessity right now, but doom scrolling every article that comes out about this stuff isn't. Thanks to our sponsor Ground News, you can take a step back and get the full story in one place. Their website and app gathers related articles from around the world so you can easily compare and contrast how different outlets cover the same story. For example, if you're looking for some insight on this executive order, you can find a left-leaning source like Time Magazine's article, Trump's Biological Truth executive order is not based in biology or truth, which is written by an intersex person and provides a full first-hand breakdown from the perspective of someone who is directly affected. Or a center source like Stat News, Trump executive order declaring only two sexes gets the biology wrong, scientists say. To hear from experts. Or of course, there's the right with sources like Fox News. Influencers praise Trump for declaring only two genders will be recognized by US. Truth is winning. For an equally important and valid perspective, the opinion of influencers. Ground News also provides crucial context like the political bias of a source, factuality rating, and who owns them, be it an independent news source, government, corporation, etc. And these story summaries are a great TLDR when you want to know what's going on, but you don't have the capacity to fully immerse yourself. And that's why Ground News is great. They make staying informed a lot less exhausting. So if you'd like to get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan, the same one that I use, click my link in the description or go to groundnews.com/Turner, and subscribing there directly supports my channel as well as an independent team that's working to keep the media transparent. What feels like many years but was actually less than a month ago, during Trump's inauguration, he stood flanked by the 1%, the handful of people who have more money than the rest of us combined, the tech giants and CEOs that are running parts of the government that are supposed to keep their corporations in check, and the rest of the government too. I guess just the whole thing. And he gave his speech and he didn't address the housing crisis or the failing healthcare system or the ongoing climate emergency or the ever-expanding wage gap, which I totally get because most of the guys responsible for that stuff were like standing right there. So that'd be awkward. But Trump did announce this.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
And that
former president
actually did it. Defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. Executive Order, January 20th, 2025. Across the country, ideologues who deny the biological reality of sex have increasingly used legal and other socially coercive means to permit men to self-identify as women and gain access to intimate single-sex spaces and activities designed for women. Why does this sound like how a teenage boy fantasizes about a girl's sleepover? And it is just already dripping with these far-right buzzwords. Like the language in this federal executive order, this presidential action, reads like some inflammatory conservative conspiracy piece. It is actually shocking. From women's domestic abuse shelters to women's workplace showers to an all-girl sleepover where maybe they get into a pillow fight, they start tickling each other. I don't know. This is wrong. Efforts to eradicate the biological reality of sex fundamentally attack women by depriving them of their dignity, safety, and well-being. The erasure of sex in language and policy has a corrosive impact not just on women, but on the validity of the entire American system. Basing federal policy on truth is critical to scientific inquiry, public safety, morale, and trust in government itself. The irony cannot be overstated. This literally feels like a bit. This forces men like me into women's spaces and does nothing to stop any predator that wants to forcibly enter a space from entering that space. Obviously. And the way they harp on biological sex, the reality, the science of it all, like it just feels like a bit. When you see the definition that they have created for these immutable biological facts. Accordingly, my administration will defend women's rights and protect freedom of conscience by using clear and accurate language and policies that recognize women are biologically female and men are biologically male. Oh my God. Well, that's a big old claim you just made there. Let's take a look at those definitions. First off, sex shall refer to an individual's immutable biological classification as either male or female. Sex is not a synonym for and does not include the concept of gender identity. Now that is actually true. Now hold on. You have one correct sentence in this whole thing, and they're still getting it wrong because they're not actually acknowledging that these are two separate concepts that both exist within our society and how we function, but rather you can either have one or the other. So let's see what that entails. Women or woman and girls or girl shall mean adult and juvenile human females, respectively. Men or man and boys or boy shall mean adult and juvenile human males, respectively. Right, all right. Female, all right, this is what I'm really curious about. Female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell. Male means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the small reproductive cell. That is incomprehensible. That is not how human development works. At conception, there are reproductive cells involved, but neither of those are produced by the person they will eventually develop into. I'm sorry, but how do they think that babies work? They think the whole thing is just already in there? Like one of those little dinosaur sponges, you drop the capsule in water and a dinosaur pops out? Like the whole fucking baby is just already there? This is a brand new take on human sex classification. Like there's literally no way to know at conception. You don't know for several weeks. You don't even have the option to find out until like 18 weeks into pregnancy? The insistence on this biological reality and this definition of sex in this strict binary that is rooted in scientific truth and cannot be disputed is absolutely crazy when this is the definition they come up with. The biological reality of sex is that it's impossible to accurately define as a binary because it is so much more complex than an X or a Y, an egg or a sperm, a testicle or an ovary, a penis or a vagina. Like there are so many factors that determine a person's sex. I actually have a chart here that shows that. And on the far side, you have a typical biological female and how two X chromosomes in the absence of the SRY gene lead to typical biological female development, where you have female internal and external genital structures at birth, and then at puberty, female hormones and secondary sex characteristics. On the other side, we have the typical biological male development from an XY chromosome with the expression of the SRY gene, leading to male internal and external genital structures at birth, and then at puberty, you get male hormones and male secondary sex characteristics. And that's also when they would start producing the small cell, by the way. Not at the moment of conception. But then in the middle of those two sides of this spectrum is an entire whole ass spectrum. Lots of different ways that chromosomes, genes, and hormones in the womb impact a person's sex. Sex is very much a spectrum. 1 to 2 in every 100 people are born intersex. And that's not an identity. Their biological reality is that they physically exist outside of this binary. And that seems to be why this weird new definition of sex has been created to kind of sidestep the existence of intersex people, because their existence throws a wrench in this whole fucking thing. It disproves the entire basis of all of their claims. And they need everyone to believe that this is just an attack on trans people, but in order to do that, they also have to erase intersex people. The executive order goes on to talk about gender ideology, saying it replaces the biological category of sex with an ever-shifting concept of self-assessed gender identity, permitting the false claim that males can identify as and thus become women, and vice versa. Oh shit, we're actually mentioned in there. Not directly, but and vice versa. See, I thought we were totally invisible in this whole thing because, trans men also throw a wrench into a lot of their claims. Gender ideology includes the idea that there's a vast spectrum of genders that are disconnected from one sex. It's not gender ideology. That is just the concept of gender itself. Gender is a social construct. That's why men used to wear dresses and high heels, and pink was considered a manly color. I mean, men still wear pink dresses and high heels, but now it pisses these people off. Gender ideology is internally inconsistent in that it diminishes sex as an identifiable or useful category, but nevertheless maintains that it is possible for a person to be born in the wrong sexed body. Acknowledging the fact that gender exists is not an ideology. Nobody is trying to replace the concept of sex with the concept of gender. And I mean, I'm honestly speechless. I do not have the words. This is an executive order from the president that is saying gender and sex are the same thing. There's no such thing as gender. There's only sex. It is written into our DNA. It is there at conception that men like trucks. All right? Gender identity reflects a fully internal and subjective sense of self, disconnected from the biological reality, and sex existing on an infinite continuum that does not provide meaningful basis for identification and cannot be recognized as a replacement for sex. Why? Why is that? I disagree. Why would that be a problem for a passport if the purpose is purely a visual identification to verify the person matches their document? Gender identity is a lot more accurate and helpful. We cannot get this plane off the ground unless we know at conception if you could produce the small or the large cell, which is it? And are you okay with sitting in an exit row? It's a fucking passport, bro. The TSA doesn't need to know if I used to have a uterus. They just need to know that I'm the guy handing them the thing, and it's not going to seem like that if it has a fucking F on there. Section 3, recognizing women are biologically distinct from men within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall provide to the U.S. government, external partners, and the public clear guidance expanding on the sex-based definitions set forth in this order. I am waiting with bated breath to hear some expanding on these definitions. Kind of sounds like they can't even answer their own question, what is a woman? We'll get back to you. We'll let you know. Give us a month and we'll tell you. The whole gender ideology section of this, it's, based on the incorrect premise that there must either be gender or sex, and any recognition of the existence of gender is a radical ideology. It's kind of crazy because just a few years back, the concept of gender ideology, that phrasing, was considered far-right conspiracy shit. And now it's in a fucking federal policy. From here, they talk about enforcement, which is essentially, hey, we're erasing the word gender from everything and replacing it with sex. Your sex is either male or female based on the shit we made up earlier, and you can't change it. So if you were born female and transitioned to male, no, you didn't. You're female again, and also a woman, because we decided that's the same thing. So now you got to use the women's restroom, women's locker rooms, women's sports, women's prisons, women-only shelters, etc. And no more federal funding for anything that promotes gender ideology. It kind of sounds like the government was putting up billboards, running commercials for us. But no, they're just threatening to withhold funding from anyone that doesn't comply. They're also removing any and all federal anti-discrimination protections for trans people and rescinding a bunch of guidance documents. the White House Toolkit on Transgender Equality, the Department of Education's guidance documents, including Title IX regulations, pointers for implementation, U.S. Department of Education Toolkit creating inclusive non-discriminatory school environments for LGBTQI+ students. Yeah, fuck them kids. Department of Education supporting LGBTQ+ youth, supporting intersex students, because we can't have those. Who? Huh? Sorry? Confronting anti-LGBTQI+ harassment in schools, a resource for students and families. Delete it. Get that shit out of here. Education in a pandemic. Yeah, might as well just throw that in. We don't like that one either, so... Equal employment opportunity, enforcement guidance on harassment in the workplace. Can't see why we'd need that. Yeah, it is a whole mess. But like I said earlier, executive actions do not have the authority to override the United States Constitution, federal statutes, or established legal precedent. So a lot of the stuff in here, they can't just, do it. But there's also stuff that they can. And it's happening, already. Very fast. So some of the fallout that has already been caused by this, and we are seeing more with each passing day. So by the time this video goes up, there's going to be more. But right now, just a couple weeks into this, we already have trans passports being flagged and rejected. Any passport application with an X on it has been halted. Multiple trans people have already come forward with problems and these really intense situations with their passports. One trans woman had her passport taken away because it was flagged for having the gender change. And they said, well, they could only give her one that says male. And she's like, all right, fine. I've got travel plans. I need a passport. I'll take it. And they were like, oh, wait, nobody said yes to that so far. Never mind. You can't have any passport, apparently. And now she can't travel. Her passport's taken away.
I'm leaving the Los Angeles Passport Agency after trying to acquire a new passport, and I've been impacted by the executive order. They are effectively banning me from travel, though they will not call it a travel ban. They stated that they would at first give me a passport that had the male identifier on it, though I have my sex legally changed to female. And after claiming that they would give me the male one, I said any is fine as long as I'm able to travel. They came back and said that actually this is the first we're hearing that, and we won't be able to give you that either. We won't be able to give you any passport. We have no further information. And that is the case of what we are dealing with right now in the United States. There is an effective travel ban if you are trying to get a passport and you've had any sort of change with your gender. I've heard a lot of people saying things like, oh, it's fine if you just want to get a passport with your old gender, it's fine. That's not true. They will not give it to me. And when I asked for more answers, I only left the office under threat of arrest.
Another trans woman whose sex was already changed to female on her passport and all of her other legal documents renewed her passport and got it back with a male gender marker. And they included a letter that said, your gender marker was incorrect. It's got to be this.
In case you're wondering what it's like being transgender under this new administration, I just got my new passport in the mail and they changed the gender to male because of Donald Trump. In case y'all want proof, there's my picture, very cunty. And yeah, there's that big ugly M. Yay! Now, mind you, all of my other documents are updated to female, and I've been fully surgically updated to female. But this is what they had to say. The sex was corrected on your passport application. The changes were made for one of the following reasons: to match our record. I had a passport when I was a kid that I used once. So basically, it doesn't matter that all of my other documents say female and that I've had my sex change surgery. If you've had a passport in the past that displays the opposite sex, then they will not honor your gender change.
Like I said, there's no directive on how this is supposed to be implemented. So this is kind of just up to the discretion of the local post offices, or I really don't know who's making these decisions. But trans people are having their passports taken away. They're having them changed despite their sex legally being correct. And it's terrifying. I personally have canceled international travel plans. It's hard to talk about. I have a baby nephew in another country and I was going to go get to visit him and see him. And now I can't do that because I'm scared they're going to take my passport away when I try to come back into the country. And then, next year if things escalate and I actually need to leave, I'm not going to have a passport at all. Or I'm going to have one that says female, and that would be better than nothing, but who knows what kind of problems that could end up causing. It's honestly kind of terrifying, feeling like I am stuck here, at least until I'm ready to leave without the intention of coming back. And it's not just the passports that this is affecting. There's a Denver high school under federal investigation for having an all-gender bathroom. And that bathroom was created under an initiative by the students. And we're already seeing all of these other high schools rushing to change their policies to be in compliance with this executive order, probably because they heard about Denver, and they don't want to be next. And the, defunding gender ideology, it's also going to effectively destroy a lot of ongoing trans medical research and screw up the already limited social survey data we have on trans people. And we've already got U.S. health agencies scrubbing websites for anything trans related. It's being deleted. Entire web pages are being taken down. They are literally deleting tons of information about trans people and trans health. This is probably the most disturbing part to me, halting trans research and destroying the information and stuff that we already have. Man, it's reminiscent. There's a Mark Twain quote, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." And it feels like we've moved from a slant rhyme into full rhyme territory. It's sounding like Yahtzee Erminy. It's giving Shitler. I'm hearing Shitler. So historically speaking, this is not good for anyone. The bigger problem that I was talking about in the beginning is that apparently the president can legally redefine words based on personal beliefs to create discriminatory policies. That's what this is. That the definition of sex is made up. All of this shit about gender ideology, it's just not real. But they're doing it. So to the people cheering this on, just know this is where it starts, with a small minority group that conservatives have spent years stirring up hate against. But this is not where it ends.
In Germany, they came first for the communists. And I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews. And I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists. And I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics. And I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me. And by that time, nobody was left to speak up.